would love to start with just kind of a basic general question. What's emotional immaturity?
So, when I was getting trained, there was a big emphasis on child development and the relationship between a person's level of development and their mental health or their daily functioning. So, when I say emotional immaturity, I mean that at an emotional level, some people, unfortunately, it's many people, tend to react to life as though they are psychologically much younger than they really are. Now, general development in a human being can happen in separate threads. Like we can have our intellectual development, we can have our social development, we can have our occupational development. So you could be an extremely intelligent person who is a great success in business or in your chosen field, and you can be very socially popular. Okay, these things all proceed apace, but in your emotional development, you may be actually more like a 3 or a 4 year old or a 7 year old or a 15 year old. And so we want to understand that people kind of get stuck at certain ages in terms of how they handle their emotional responses to life. And of course, that includes things like intimate relationships and stress. So if you think about it on a continuum, we don't have the absolutely 100% emotionally immature person. That would be hard to find. Um, and then we don't have the 100% emotionally mature person. So you'll notice that I always refer to adequately emotionally mature or sufficiently emotionally mature because it's all relative.
Yeah.
And people slide back and forth between maturity and immaturity depending on the level of stress that they're facing and depending on the demands on them for emotional intimacy or closeness with other people. So if we are sick or exhausted or very stressed, all of us can show emotionally immature behavior. We become more impulsive. We become less sensitive to other people. We have trouble modulating our emotional and anxiety responses to life. And conversely, the emotionally immature person, when they really want something, or when they're very well resourced, they're topped off, they're feeling good, things are going their way, they can stretch and appear to be much more emotionally mature than they really are. Well,
Mm-hmm.
to say really more than they can sustain.
What are some of the common features of this that, are kind of good symptoms for people to look at of emotional immaturity?
The emotion part is huge because one of the greatest challenges for any kid's development, as all of us know who have children or have been around children, they have trouble regulating their emotional responses. They have a hard time keeping an even keel by themselves. So, a huge part of parenting and nurturing has to do with stepping in when the child is getting overwhelmed by their own emotional responses. And over time, the kid learns that this is how I calm myself down, or this is who I go to get help in calming myself down. But it's not something that, well, we all know this about babies, it's not something that babies come into the world knowing how to do. They have to be taught it over years of hopefully attentive enough nurturing that they begin to figure out how to bring themselves down and to develop those parts of the brain that can really cope with the stress in ways that are adaptive. If you think about it in terms of how do I deal with stress? How do I deal with my own emotions when I get upset? And then how do I get close to other people and get to know them in an emotionally genuine way without getting overwhelmed by them or scared by them? How do I move in and out of an optimal level of closeness with them? This takes years, hopefully, of good relationships with adults in order to develop those kinds of controls.
Yeah. So just thinking about the behavior of young kids, and I think this model that you have of being kind of trapped in a moment in terms of your ability to relate emotionally to other people is a very, very helpful one. Just for people to think about generally and think about the consequences of that in their relationships with other people in their lives, which we'll certainly get into a bit more later.